Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining me. My name's Keely, I'm from KP Papercuts and I'm here today to show you a little bit of a demo around paper cutting and what I do. Thanks so much Danielle for inviting me along today. As everybody probably knows from what Danielle's been telling you throughout the day, I am a total stationery addict. It is really bad. I'm also a paper cutting artist, so what I do is I use my scalpel. This is my scalpel just here, and I use that to carve paper basically and turn it into loads and loads of pretty things. Today I'm going to show you how to cut out some of these leaves, which can then be turned into really cute gift tags or decorations, or even pop them in a page on your journal. You could use them as a giant bookmark or something like that. A little bit more about me. I've been paper cutting for 6 years now. And I started as a way to reduce a bit of stress and introduce a bit of calm into my life on an evening after my stressful day job. I hadn't seen anything like this before, and when I did find it, I thought it looked really interesting, so I thought I'd give it a go, and I haven't looked back since. So when we're paper cutting, we use a variety of papers, but they are thicker than your standard printer papers. So this particular one that I've got here today is actually a pearlescent one. Now the light's not amazing, so you might not be able to see the sheen on it, but it's there. It's a white. It's got a bit of a sort of sheen to the finish, so it looks really pretty when you're done. Whenever we start paper cutting, we always start with our smallest details. So in this case, we're going to start with the little rounds that will become like our hanging hoops. And then we're going to move on to some of the details inside the leaves before we cut them out. And if I've got time, I'm also going to show you them backed on some really bright coloured paper so that they really stand out and pop. So without further ado, we shall start. And I'm going to start with this one because this is my favourite one anyway. So we go nice and slow. Circles are some of the hardest ones to learn. I remember when I very first started paper cutting, my first circle was more like a 50p piece than it was a circle. It was absolutely terrible. So I'm just doing really small and tiny cuts as I'm going along. And as you can see, I'm turning the paper rather than moving the knife in my arm so much. And that's so that I can keep control of it, because obviously I'm using a sharp implement. I don't want it just sort of flying away. Do let me know that if the light's not great. I've got a little light beside me that I can brighten up a little bit, but it's absolutely chucking it down here. It's awful. Okay, and there's our first little bit out and done. So we've got our first hole in our paper. So next I'm going to move on to sort of, I suppose you call them the veins within the leaves. I'm just going to really slowly and steadily pull down towards the end. As you can see, I'm not bang on the lines, but I'm not really overly concerned about that because this is actually the back of my finished piece rather than the front. So it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, as nothing is in life anyway, to be fair. So I hope you've all been having a great day today at Danielle's launch party. I'm actually one of the ambassadors for the Rowan Berry box. So I'll be popping up in the secret private group that we've got, sharing lots of tips and hints and just generally being there to have a chit chat and help you along. Obviously, my speciality is paper. So if you're looking to find out what sort of papers you might want to use for different art projects or for paper cutting, or, you know, just generally to make things look really pretty, then I'm your girl. You don't want to see my paper collection. It is beyond huge. There's boxes and boxes of it everywhere, all over the house. It's terrible. And then I've even got more boxes of offcuts because I just don't throw anything away. I keep them all and use them for like little miniatures and to add details onto bigger pieces. I've even turned them into confetti for people's cards and presents, which is a really nice way to do. So as you can see, I'm not rushing, I'm just taking my time, going along. Ideally, when you're paper cutting, the best light to use is natural daylight. Obviously in the winter you need to use a lot more, I don't want to say fake light, but artificial light, that's what I mean. But you can get some really, really good daylight bulbs that sort of replicate sunshine, and therefore they're not too harsh on your paper. Because when you're using pearlescent especially, it gets quite, it's got like a shiny reflective surface. So you don't really want a harsh light on it, because that's going to make it more difficult for you to see your lines. I've also got my giant cup of tea next to me, which is another essential for paper cutting and for life in general, I think. But I can't cut without a cup of tea next to me. Terrible. So we're nearly halfway through this side of the detail. I've got a plane on the other side. I've got my iPad out next to me so that I can see any comments or any questions or anything you've got. So if there's anything at all that you want to ask me as I'm going along, just pop in a comment and I'll answer your questions as I go too. So what Danielle doesn't know is that something else I've been working on for her over the weekend is a surprise birthday present. Now, I haven't quite got it finished yet. Still needs mounting, but I did the main cut of it last night and oh, it's lush. I love it. So later on, if I can get it all mounted up this evening, I'm going to pop it in my stories and I'm going to pop it in the group as well, so you can see a bit more of a detailed piece from me, and hopefully it'll be a nice surprise for Danielle as well. So I've known Danielle about 2 years. We joined a business club at the same sort of time, and it's safe to say we became very fast friends, probably through our addiction to stationery and all things handmade and pretty. And last year I was really, really, really chuffed when she asked me to do a collaboration with her for one of her boxes. So I did like a template sheet that you could use as a cover page in your journal. So if you're in the secret group, watch out later on, because I'm going to be adding in that template for you all to have for free. I'll also, as the group grows and as we do more boxes and things like that, be popping some other little freebies and little videos and tips and things of how you can use not just paper cutting with a knife like I am, but also paper cutting with scissors, and how you can maybe use that in your journaling or use it to create decorations for your little happy place in your home. So generally I go a bit quiet normally when I'm cutting, because it's really, really relaxing and calming, and I sort of lose myself in it and forget to talk. So nudge me if I go really, really quiet, won't you? So nearly there. So as you can see, what I always do as well is I turn my paper rather than turning my knife, just to make it easier to see, and also so that I'm always cutting towards myself, and therefore I'm less likely to have an accident. Although I haven't sliced any fingers yet, they're all there. So on the last bit of this inside detail now. Okay, so we've now got all the little pieces cut out, so you can see on the other side what it's going to start to look like. And now I'm going to go around the outside of this one. So I'm going to start with the fiddly bit to try and make life easier for myself. Oh, just caught on the edge of me file. Just reading your comments there. Danielle's saying it's 3 weeks to her birthday, but I think she's having an early birthday today. And I'm just going to go around the outside. So each time when I'm doing these cuts around the outside, I'm finding where my finish point was from my last cut. And then going out towards the edge. And that gives you a really nice crisp point. So what's everyone been up to today? Other than spending all their time on Instagram and Facebook looking at all the pretty things that Danielle's got. Has anyone been to work? Homeschooling? So you see there where I moved I'll show you better on this one, where I turned the paper and my knife just stayed still to help me follow the curve. That's a top tip, definite top tip. It took me ages to learn that one. I used to have very not curvy curves. See, I'm just working my way around the outside. I'm not rushing, because you know, life's too short. And then I'm going to come back down the other side, using exactly the same principles. So when I get to the bottom of a curve, turn it a little bit. Just get comfy. Taking a break to watch. Yes, I don't blame you. It's always worth taking a break to watch. I did one of these last Saturday and I was cutting a little bee. It's over on my IGTV. And everyone was saying how calm it was and how they didn't want to do anything afterwards because they were really, really chilled out. And that's exactly how I feel when I've finished paper cutting as well. It's not quite so calm in doing it live though. So I've got quite a big curve on this one, but again, I'm just going to get towards the bottom, turn the paper so that I'm not having to move my arm too much. And the next one, I'm nearly there on this one. Have you all entered the competition as well? Or should I say competitions? I don't think I can enter as an ambassador. But, oh, those brush pens. Those Ecoline brush pens. I was absolutely in love with those when I saw them this morning. Oh, missed a bit. See, this is what happens when you do things. You miss a bit. There you go. And there is our first one. All done and ready to go. So next one, again, we're going to do the same thing. Sorry, I'm just going to move that out of the way so I don't knock it and tear it or something. Next one, we're going to start again with the little circle at the top that will become our hanging hoop. I did something similar to this for my Christmas presents last year for all my friends and family. And I did like feathers because I was having a theme on, because I love a theme for my Christmas presents. Got to have a theme, haven't you? And I did like feathers and leaves in all different pastel. I'd gone pastel last year. I don't know why I chose pastel, but I did. And gold, like a burnished gold colour. And I cut them all and wrote them little messages on the back of them. And everybody kept them and then started hanging them on the trees. So it's a lovely way of decorating gifts. So some of these ones are slightly smaller. So again, you find when I'm paper cutting, there's little bits of paper ends up all over, especially if I'm doing little tiny holes. Just end up with shards of paper all across my cutting mat. I'm just going to go down, follow along and go up to the bottom. Okay, so just starting at one point, coming down, finding where that point started and then joining up towards the bottom. This one's slightly more delicate. Sorry if I'm sniffling, I'm full of hay fever, which you wouldn't believe in the rating, would you? But absolutely full to the brim of hay fever. Yeah, moving the paper is my top tip. My other top tip, you might just be able to see on the edges, and apologies for its scruffiness, is don't cut at a table. Cut it at an ironing board. I know, everyone's always really surprised when I say that until I explain why. So I'm currently sat really comfortably on my sofa. And I've set up my ironing board in front of me. I have 2 ironing boards in my house. I have one for ironing and I have one for paper cutting on. And the reason I like to use an ironing board is because I can adjust the height really easily. So that if I'm doing like tiny, small details, I can raise the ironing board so that the cut is closer to me, and I find that I have more control that way. And then obviously if I'm doing a larger piece, it's got a big surface area, so I can spread the piece out and I'm not going to worry about it tearing or anything on the edge of a table because it's got softer edges. So that is my other top tip for you, is don't worry about ironing your clothes, paper cut on it instead. Okay, I'm just going to go down. These are nice big curves. I love doing big swishes like these on the edge of the leaf. So I'll tell you a little bit about the blade and handle that I'm using. I've got a Swan Morton handle. It's an ACM handle. And then I'm using my absolute favourite blade. There's loads and loads of different ones that you can pick from, but I like the number 11. And the reason that I like the number 11 is because it's really flexible. It's strong, but it's really flexible. So can you see it like bending there? That allows me to have a lot more control of what I'm doing, and it also, I've found, makes curves much easier. Oh, someone else crafts on an ironing board, yay! See, it's not just me. It's not just me. Normally people say, on an ironing board, really? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But there's loads and loads of different blades that you can try out. And I spent quite a lot of time when I very first started trying out different blades, different handles, to find one that worked really well for me. And now when I run my workshops and in my kits, you get my favourites. I've found that a lot of beginners really like the number 11 because of the flexibility that it gives them. They feel like they've got the control and they're not worried if they press hard, which is sometimes something that you do when you're first starting out. All right, so we've done one side. We're going to go back down on the opposite side. Just keeping an eye on the time as well. I've got lots of time. Loads of time. I often lose track of time when I'm cutting, you see, so I had to put a clock on near me so that I knew I wasn't going to go over time. I've been known to sit for sort of 4 or 5 hours and not realise I've been sat there that long, looked up and gone, oh my goodness, it's nearly dark. So now I tend to put a movie or something on in the background. Not a radio station or anything like that, but like a movie so that it's got like a set time period. And when it finishes, I know that's my cue to get up and start moving, because otherwise all your joints seize up and it's not good for you to sit for that long. So we're just on the second to last leaf on this one now. I'm just going to come down. So the other thing that I do that you can see is I've got my knife in one hand, but I'm using this hand, and in particular my nail, to keep my paper in place and just to almost use it as a guide. But it's really handy for keeping your paper nice and secure, which is, when you're doing quite fine lines, is really, really useful. So we are nearly there on this one. Just take that out of it. There we go, and we've got our second one done. So I've been quite accurate on that one. I might be able to get away with using either side as the front. Okay, and then we're going to move on to our last one. I'm just going to cut off a bit of excess paper so that it's easier for me to manage. Just brush it all to one side. I'll clean that up later. And again, I'm starting with the little part at the top. So you can see I'm not worried if my knife comes out of the paper. The aim isn't to keep the knife in the paper all the time. You know, you can move it. It's no bother. Just going to pause for a slurp of tea. Brilliant, perfect temperature as well. And with this one, I'm just going to go down one side and then down the other side, much like I have with all of the other ones. And we do the inside before we do the outside, because that helps us to keep the integrity of the paper. It stops it being as likely to tear. I mean, this is, as I say, this is much thicker than the paper that you would use in your printer. This is 120 GSM, and I tend to use up to around about 160 to cut with. Any thicker than 160 and you're into card territory, and it'll hurt because you have to press really hard. 120 is about my optimum because it's just thick enough, and I'm using about the same sort of pressure as I do when I'm writing. So I'm not like using acres and acres of pressure so that I get a sore finger or knuckle or anything like that. I've started a conversation about ironing boards in the comments now. That's hilarious. I'll be expecting in the group to see you all posting pictures of your crafting stations on your ironing boards. Okay, and then we're going to go down and do this larger part. So again, I'm not rushing. I'll turn my paper so I can see the line a bit better. And we'll go down the other side. So these designs in particular I think would be lovely on like an autumnal spread. If you back them, all right, I'm going to do one I think in copper. I might back one in copper for you in a moment. So you could use like coppers and golds and just beautiful shades like that. Or if you fancied it being more summery, you could use like bright greens and things. keep meaning to do some of these in like tropical and houseplant motifs. Because I've found a love of houseplants over this last few months. I started with none and I'm on to 3. My mum's just taken a cutting off an aloe for me as well, so I'm going to have 4 shoes soon. Can't wait, can't wait. Well, we're nearly halfway down this side now as well. See what I mean? It flicks off all over. I end up with paper everywhere. Just cut that bit off there. Next little bit. Nearly that. So that's our first half done. And then we're just going to do the same on the other side. We're just going to go sort of top to bottom on this one. And again, I'm just turning my paper so I can get nice and starting to speed up now, can you see? Once I start getting into like my groove, so normally about a third of the way through a piece, I start cutting a lot faster because I've really got the feel for the pattern and the feel for how this particular piece of paper is going to behave. One nice little bit here. So I'm going to use my finger here just to keep it steady as I'm going along. Last thing I want to do is start ripping holes in it. So, has anyone got any questions for me that they want me to answer while I'm on here about paper cutting or about stationery in general? Because I'm quite happy to share. Just pop something in the comments and let me know. Oh, we're speeding along now, aren't we? I have to say it's a bit weird sat here talking and not hearing people reply straight away. It's quite funny. I'm still getting used to that side of it. Because normally when I'm teaching workshops, I've got a class of like 8 to 10 in front of me, sometimes even up to like 30. And it's a bit weird talking to the living room. But I'm getting used to it. Nearly there on this. Be interesting to know if anyone else has tried paper cutting before. Because normally when I explain what I do to people, a lot of people haven't actually come across it or tried it out. And it's a lot more accessible than you think, because you don't need a lot of equipment to start with. You just need a cutting mat, which is this that I've got here. I've got a self-healing one. This is a large one. This is an A3 one. But all of my kits come with A4 size ones, which are perfect for starters. you just need your handle, some blades and some paper, which is, you know, not a lot when you think about what you need for other art forms and crafts. And it's really accessible. There's lots of places you can get pre-designed templates and stuff from, including myself. But also it's really fun sometimes to make your own and design your own and just play around and experiment until you find something that you like. The only thing you do need to remember is if you cut in the same sort of method as I do, that you need to be able to draw everything backwards. So if you're going to do like lettering or something like that, you need to be able to draw it backwards, which is where clever things like computers come in, because there's loads of programs out there where you can draw a design, scan it in and then flip it so that you can draw it right way around, and then the computer flips it the other side for you. None of that. Just going to go around the outer edge of this one. Okay, last one, last big cut. Got some weird shadows being thrown on this here because it's so dark outside. And there we have one last leaf. So we have one, we have two, we have three. So I've got some paper here that I'm going to mount them on. Now there's a few different ways that you can do it. I've got this, which is a Quickie glue pen. You can get these from Danielle. She sells them on her website. I like these because you can do really fine lines and it's not as messy as things like Pritt Stick can get. So I'm literally just going to draw along the main stem. I'll draw up, because we don't want loads of glue on them anyway, because that'll make your paper bubble potentially. So I'm just going to follow lines. I love it. It's like drawing with a pen. It's just so easy to use. Now you notice I haven't put any glue on this end, and that's for a deliberate reason. So we've Quickie glued that. And we're going to go and stick it onto our piece of paper. Okay. Now, I do this freehand. You could put it down, draw around it, and then go. But I'm going to be very daring. I'm just going to do it freehand. So I'm kind of almost using the outer edge of my cut as my line to follow. For me to draw it out. How are we doing for time? Good. And I'm not going right into the middle because I want it to have a bit more rigidity. Well, that was a big word for a Thursday, Wednesday. What day is it? Wednesday. Is everyone else like that at the moment? What day is it? I had to think there. So this is a really quick and easy way to create a little decoration. And then I'm just going to go down the other side. I'm absolutely not worried about it being completely perfect because nothing in nature is completely perfect. Everything's a little bit different. I'm just giving myself a bit of a margin around them. Let's see how far I want to go in on that one. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. I love doing that. Turn my paper again. Okay, so here's the reason I didn't stick that bit down, because now I need to fold it back slightly so I can finish my cut. And then, there we go. So we have one beautifully copper leaf, and you can see, can you see how it shimmers? There we go. I can see that on my end. I hope you can see that on your end. So how about one in a beautiful bright green? I'll do this one. So again, I'm just going to take my Quickie glue and just sort of trace around the edge. Not being all proper and perfect, because I don't need it to be. This glue's good enough that it goes tacky really quickly and sticks really, really well. I'm just going to, just for good measure, pop 2 down there as well. So this paper that I've got here is different to the other papers that I use. This one is a hammered paper. So it's actually got, I don't know whether you can see very well, but it's actually got like a finish and a texture to it. It's a lovely one to use. It's really lovely green. I'm not normally a green person, but I particularly like this one. And again, I'm just going to sort of go around the outside. This one's slightly thicker. This is one of my 160s, 160 GSM ones, as opposed to one of my 120s that I was using on the other ones. And I'm going to see, I think I've got some really nice bright gold paper for the very last one. Again, I'm just giving myself a little bit of a gap away from my paper cut and just following the outline round, so the general shape. Oh, thanks guys, everyone's saying they're gorgeous and beautiful. It's really nice of you. I love what I do. A lot of my work is inspired by nature. It is my go-to theme. I use a lot of florals. I use a lot of leaf patterns. I love cutting bees and dragonflies and, you know, insects and things with really, really interesting shapes and patterns to them. I particularly love cutting leaves. I think leaves are probably my absolute favourites to do. Just there's so much variety in their shapes and their colours, and it's just fantastic inspiration. And the great thing is you can almost, you know, nip into your garden, take one off a plant, or if it's like autumn, pick one up off your grass or the floor or whatever, and come in and use it as like a template. So you can like put it down, draw around it, and then invent your own veining in the leaf and things like that. You can be really, really experimental with it. There's no sort of hard and fast rules about it, which I think is the other thing that I love the most about taking my inspiration from nature and its shapes. And if you have got a leaf, you could create like a big piece with like lots and lots of leaves on it. Sort of almost like a mixed media collage. Oh, I've given myself all sorts of ideas here. Put through there. And again, same thing. Just going to do that and lift it out. We've now got a green one. So you can see you could write a little message on the back there to someone and use it as a gift tag. And then let me just grab a bit of gold paper. Oh, how nice is that? It's super, super shiny, this one. Right, let me work out the back from the front. There we go. And again, and this is the other thing, when you've got loads of little strands like that, that's where these Quickie pens come into their own. You're literally just going to go around the outside going to go up the middle, and then we'll do a couple of stripes along some of the thicker banding, or just where there's a join. And again, I'm not being like super accurate. You can see, although the ink comes out blue, it dries clear, so it has no impact. Just have another slurp of my tea. And again, I'm just going to do exactly the same as I did on the other ones. I'm just going to use this as a rough guide. Just turn that around that way so I can see a bit better. Just fold that back a little bit, join it up, pull it off and stick it back down. So, there we have it. We have got 1, 2, 3 pretty leaves all ready for you to decorate either your house, your office. If you've got a little twig tree, something like that, use as on a present for somebody. And aren't they pretty? So thank you very, very much for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the rest of Danielle's party for the Rowan Berry box. And if you want to give me a follow, I'm on Instagram and Facebook as @KP Papercuts. Thanks ever so much, guys, and we shall see you later.